Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I now declare the Scenic Regional Council Ordinary Meeting for Wednesday, the 18th of December 2024 now open. And would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the lands on which we gather and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. I believe we have a full attendance today with no apologies, and would now welcome and call upon Pastor Mark Ironside from the Harvest Point Church for prayers. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you. Dave? Thank you, Mayor, Tom and councillors this morning and assistants here today. It's my privilege to take a couple of minutes of your time just to acknowledge this, possibly I presume the last meeting of the year. And as we come to this Christmas time, what a great time of celebration and holidays for many of you and for most of us as well. And just a couple of quick thoughts as I pray this morning is, so what is Christmas? Let's be negative, at its worst. It's commercial, it's empty, it's exhausting, very expensive. What is Christmas at its best? It's a glimpse of something that is coming, the beauty, the wonder of music, the angels, the love, the warmth, the promise, and the hope to come. Because when you get down to it, Christmas is a promise. It's a promise of things to come. And so with that promise today, there comes an eternal perspective. It's possible to live the holidays with hope in a hopeless situation, faith in trying times, and joy despite our circumstances, and peace in the middle of chaos. This Christmas of 2024. The prophet Isaiah said these just couple of quick words about the coming birth of Jesus before the event. He said, "For a child is born to us, a son is given, and the government will rest upon his shoulders. He will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace, and his government and his peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestor David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord's heavenly armies will make this happen." Isaiah 9 verses 6 and 7. Whether we fully agree with Christmas or acknowledge Jesus Christ, it's irrespective of this is the time we celebrate Christmas anyway. We'll enjoy the holiday. And as I pray for you today, Lord, thank you for this final meeting of the year. Thank you for these men and women who work here tirelessly. We commit them to you as they break for Christmas after this time. Lord, let their Christmas be filled with hope, comfort, joy, and the celebration of family together. Lord, I pray protection over them as families. I pray protection over their relationships and their time of gathering of festivity this coming Christmas. Thank you, Lord, for peace upon this shire. Thank you for prosperity. Thank you for fruitfulness and good outcomes from their conversations and work today. I bless this gathering in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your time this morning. Much appreciate this privilege and opportunity to have a few words with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Mark, and we wish you and your family all the best for the season and your flock, and thank you for your contribution to our region.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah. Have a good day.
I'll now hand it over to the CEO for public question time.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor. I have a question from Ms. Sharon. Oh, sorry, Mike. Can you flick that one up, Deputy? Yep. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question from Ms. Sharon Reiki. Sorry about that. It is as follows. Thank you for submitting the below question for the public question time today at today's ordinary meeting of council. The question is, what are the actions or considerations will Scenic Rim Council take regarding the information received from Port Hedland Council, 23rd of October 2024, and further communication from Councillor Blanco, 14th November 2024, motion to suspend Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines and DNA contamination. I can confirm that the Scenic Rim Regional Council has received correspondence from the town of Port Hedland Council. I can also confirm that the Mayor and councillors received copies of the correspondence. In Queensland, health services are provided under the authority of Queensland Health. Local government is required to follow any directions provided by the Chief Health Officer from Queensland Health. At this stage, Scenic Rim Regional Council has not received any direction from Queensland Health or the Chief Health Officer in relation to the storage or use of vaccines that target COVID-19. Further inquiry should be directed to the Chief Health Officer. So I'll just bring that around. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a second question, which is over here, from Mr. Nigel Wastel. He says, thank you, it's addressed to Mr. Wastel. Thank you for submitting the below questions regarding water quality testing of water extraction activities on Tamborine Mountain for the public question time at today's ordinary meeting of Council. 1, his questions are, for all operators, when was the last time these records were inspected? 2, if applicable, what were the results? 3, during this term of Council, when will Council seek an inspection of these records? I can confirm that the following development condition for record keeping is found within the approvals for three of the 4 water extractors. The applicant must ensure that water quality monitoring is conducted of water supplied for human consumption in accordance with the following requirements. A, undertake monthly chemical and microbiological analysis by a suitable accredited laboratory to demonstrate compliance with the National Health and Medical Research Council Australia drinking water guidelines. B, analytical results are to be retained for a period of at least 5 years. C, analytical results are to be made available at all reasonable times for inspection by council officers. Specific conditions relating to maintaining records of water extraction quantities and truck movements were not imposed when these approvals were issued. In response to your first 2 questions, when the records were inspected and the results, this information is private information for the purposes of the Information Privacy Act 2009, and Council is unable to disclose any compliance or inspection outcomes in this manner. You are welcome to seek information that Council holds through an RTI process. Regarding your third question about when Council will inspect the records, I can advise that Council conducts compliance and monitoring activities of development approvals in line with its policies and procedures. For most development approvals, Council does not proactively monitor compliance on an ongoing basis. However, given the ongoing community concerns, Council officers will undertake assessments of the current water extraction sites in the first half of 2025. That will be forwarded to Mr. Wastel.
Thank you, CEO. Moving on to item 6, declarations of prescribed or declarable conflict of interest by members. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to put forward that I have a... That's usually me. I'd like to put forward that I have a declarable conflict of interest in agenda item 11.3, which is the environmental grants matter. My conflict arises as one of the nominated.
Councillor, we might, if we
Leave it.
may, we'll address
Yep,
it
right.
at item 11.3.
Okay, thank
If we
you.
can note any other conflicts. Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. I note that I have a declarable conflict of interest, which I'll declare at item 11.2, the Scenic Rem Planning Scheme Updated Draft Amendment 8.
We'll address that at item 11.2. Any further? Okay. There are no announcements or mayoral minutes today, I believe. And I don't believe we have any reception of deputations or petitions.
No, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Hay.
I move that the minutes of the previous ordinary meeting be accepted.
A seconder. Councillor Moriarty. Put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried. Move to item 10.1, business arising from the previous minutes, and there was a item 10.1 arises from item 11.2 of the ordinary meeting held on the 27th of November 2024 regarding Scenic Rim Eat Local Month 2024 event outcomes, and it was a question arising directed to the General Manager in relation to the economic data. I refer that to the GM.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the question related to the source of the data for the economic benefit of the Eat Local Month and our confidence around that data. So I can advise the Council that the data is collected through visitor surveys facilitated by independent research company IER. This process is followed for all Tourism and Events Queensland, TEQ sponsored events. So ticket purchase data was received from all but 2 of the Eat Local Month events, and the survey was sent to 2,480 ticket holders, most who represent multiple ticket holders. And we had 630 responses. During the survey, they asked very specific questions about their length of stay and their expenditure, and this sample size is considered reliable, and this is the most accurate way to determine project economic return. Thank you.
Thank you. Move on to item 10.2. Councillor Moriarty.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce item 10.2, the ordinary meeting held on the 27th of November 2024, re-compliance and enforcement policy and procedure. And beyond that, I'm unsure.
You'll be referring that on to the General Manager, I would assess.
Okay. So through the Chair, I'd ask for a response to that through the Acting General Manager, please.
Thank you, Councillor, and through the Chair. In response to the question, I can advise that the compliance and enforcement policy, which was adopted by Council at the previous ordinary meeting, has a strong emphasis on supporting non-compliant operators to achieve compliance. Support can include establishing contact with planning and economic development officers, concept meetings, and a host of information material that Council has produced. Officers will continue to support anyone agreeing to voluntarily seek development approval in preference to initiating legal action. It does have to be acknowledged that some developments will find it difficult to gain approval, as the development sought may not be suitable for the desired location. However, we make this known to the operator early to ensure that they are fully informed before proceeding down the development path. The Planning Scheme 2020 was written to provide a range of opportunities for small developments to occur with limited approvals required, where safe and practical to do so. In adopting the 2020 Planning Scheme, Council also committed to ensuring that it remained current and reflected the changing times and views of the community. We are currently working on the 8th Amendment since it was introduced, with previous amendments incorporating both minor and major changes and updates to reflect state policy and mapping. Continued revision of the planning scheme by Council and the community is welcomed. In regard to fees, planning fees are set on a cost recovery basis across the differing application types. Where fees are obviously unreasonable for a specific application received, the Chief Executive Officer is authorised to determine an appropriate refund. A recent comparison of fees with surrounding councils indicates that we are generally consistent in terms of fees and charges. Having said that, council will be reviewing all of its fees as part of the upcoming budget process and can consider the appropriateness of fees at that time. For certain industries which council is seeking to encourage or attract, there is the opportunity to review those fees and charges to incentivise those developments. However, the cost difference in providing this service would need to be recouped from other sources such as general rate. Likewise, council has the opportunity to consider infrastructure charge schedules for the different types of new developments. Thank you.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Moriarty, yours.
No, thanks, Chair. Sorry, no, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Now moving on to item 11.1 and call on Councillor McInnes to introduce.
Sorry, through Mr Mayor, we might go to the Acting General Manager, please.
I'd like to advise the council that the applicant in this matter has requested an extension of time till the 28th of February 2025 to allow for further discussions to resolve some of the matters, or hopefully resolve some of the matters that are in conflict. And I would seek to withdraw this item until a future time for council to consider.
Procedurally withdrawing the item.
Yep.
I'll put that to the members. You happy with that? We don't need to vote on it.
Just move on.
We'll move on. Thank you, and now move on to item 11.2 on call upon Councillor Chalk.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Today I'll introduce report 11.2, the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme Update Draft Amendment 8. I'll take the report as being read.
Before you go any further, Councillor, we've also got to deal with a conflict of interest.
Okay.
Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. I note that there are items in item 11.2 that relate to the draft amendments to the Scenic Rim Regional Council planning scheme, and that relate to tourist parks, including camping on land, rural zone land. So in the spirit of transparency, I declare that I operate a small camping business on my cattle grazing property of 300 acres located at Sarabah, and this business currently operates without approval under the Scenic Rim Regional Council's planning scheme. Furthermore, I note that under Section 150EF of the Local Government Act, that personal interests and ordinary business matters of a local government do not apply in relation to conflict of interest in a matter that pertains to the making of a planning scheme that applies to the whole of the local government area, or amending a planning scheme if the amendment applies to the whole of the local government area. Furthermore, I note that in Council's Standing Orders, Section 10.8, it states that when deciding whether a councillor may participate in the decision-making on a matter in which they have a declarable conflict of interest, the eligible councillors should consider the particular circumstance of the matter, including whether the subject councillor has unique skills, knowledge or expertise that might help make the best decision in the public interest. So in short, I believe I have the skills, knowledge and experience in this matter that will help council make the best decision in the public interest. And for this reason, I respectfully request that my fellow councillors allow me to remain in the chamber, participate in this discussion and vote on this item.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a motion from the floor regarding the conflict of interest?
I move that the unconflicted councillors vote to determine whether Councillor Moriarty can remain in the meeting for the discussion and or vote on the item.
So, Councillor, you're proposing that do you want to propose the motion that he either remains in the discussion and votes or does not?
That he does remain and
Okay.
he does vote. Thank you.
Sorry,
Can I have a seconder to the motion?
can I get that motion? Because that was actually a motion to
Yes.
move a motion initially. So,
Could we have it as a motion
yeah,
that,
I thought that's what I'd just done. Obviously not.
initially the motion was to move a motion to determine, but then you're now saying your motion is that councillor Moriarty remain in the room and does not have a conflict?
that's the proposed motion?
That's-
Sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, he potentially does have a conflict but may stay in
Acknowledges the
room.
conflict.
So
And
if you could move a motion, please, that councillor Moriarty remain in the room and contribute to the discussion as part of his declarable interest, that would be helpful. John, are you okay with that?
Yep.
That would be good.
I'd like to move that councillor Moriarty remain in the room for the discussion on this item and also be entitled to vote on the matter as well,
acknowledging his conflict of interest.
acknowledging his conflict of interest.
Can I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Cryer. Councillor Hay, do you want to talk to your motion?
Just briefly, I'd like to say that whilst the councillor Moriarty has declared a conflict, I do believe that under the legislation, given that he's no more likely to derive a benefit from a planning scheme matter that encompasses the entire Scenic Rim area than any other resident, personally I don't have a problem with him remaining in and voting.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
Yes.
Councillor.
Yes, Mayor, I will speak against it. I think it's perception as much as anything. I don't agree with Councillor Hay in that there are not a lot of residents that actually fall into this same category as Councillor Moriarty, and there are some around, but it's not like every ratepayer is doing this, and I would think it's in his interest as much as ours that he doesn't involve himself in the discussion or voting on this particular part. I haven't got any problem with him being here for every other, and he will contribute well, I'm sure, on any other part of the discussion on this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk in favour of the motion? I'll talk to the in favour of the motion on the basis, and I think this I made this point at the very first council meeting, and I think people lose sight of the highest priority in this chamber is for the members to represent those that elected them here to do this job. Secondly, I think people also lose sight that when the member has clearly stated what the conflict is, then you are in the position to judge if that conflict and the results of it in terms of the benefits to that member or other parties. So the conflict is out there in the open. Nothing is being hidden. Thirdly, we have the opportunity to have expertise at the table contributing to this debate that is not easily available to us through these members. The matter is broad and is across the region, and it is an important matter because if you look at all publications, all documentations in terms of what we are promoting about this region, particularly in relation to tourism, nature tourism and agritourism, there is an impact, or there is an intent, and is the scheme in line with that? Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
Yes, I will, Mr. Mayor. I think there's far too many specifics in this motion, in this declaration, being an unapproved campsite. There is the potential of compliance as well. So I don't think that it's in the best interest of the council to allow Councillor Murray to stay in the room. So I'll be voting against this.
A question, if I may.
Certainly.
Is there any way that we can get through this discussion by taking out the items that would conflict Councillor Moriarty and maybe having them as a separate through the CEO, maybe?
I think sorry, my mistake. At short notice, the answer is probably no. If we had advance notice, yeah, we might have been able to do something, but General Manager?
Within the report, no, but whether council wants to split it out, it would get complicated in the meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk for the motion? Councillor Hay, do you wish to sum up?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion defeated.
And I will note that Councillor Moriarty did not vote.
And there's a call for a division. So Mayor, Councillor Hay in favour, and you noted councillors from Division 2, 4, 5 and 6 voted against, with Councillor Moriarty abstaining, which is actually amounts to did not vote. Okay, I now move on to the item itself.
Hold on,
Councillor
sorry.
Moriarty will have to vote.
So just
Yes.
to belts and braces, it would be important to indicate that you're leaving the room with a declarable interest, and perhaps just indicate that declarable interest once more.
Thank you, CEO. I am leaving the room with a declarable conflict of interest in item 11.2 with regard to the amendments to the planning scheme. Do you want me to restate the conflict?
Probably wouldn't.
The conflict is that I operate a small camping business on my cattle grazing property of 300 acres located at Saraba that operates without approval under the Scenic Regional Council's current planning scheme.
Thank you, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Chalk to introduce item 11.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today I'll introduce report 11.2, the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme Update Draft Amendment 8. I'll take the report as being read. The Draft Amendment 8 of the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme has been prepared for Council's consideration and endorsement to proceed to the State Interest Review. The amendment updates updates a variety of policy matters in the planning scheme and incorporates the first phase of amendments to implement the Scenic Rim Growth Management Strategy. I'll move the following motion that Council endorse the attached draft amendment 8. The motion that Council endorse the attached draft amendment number 8 to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 to proceed to a state interest review in accordance with the Planning Act 2016 and the Minister's Guidelines and Rules.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you wish to now talk to the motion?
Yeah, seconder, I think, Mr. Mayor.
A seconder for the motion. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Chalk, do you wish to talk to the motion?
Just to say that there's probably been a fair bit of work gone into this behind the scenes, and I congratulate staff for that hard work. It's an important process to go through to keep our planning scheme up to date as possible. Probably remembering that it goes to a state interest review and we don't have total autonomy over it. It will come back with suggestions, and we must consider their interest in our planning scheme. So I think that's probably enough said. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
Thank you,
Councillor
Chair.
Hay.
Thank you. I would like to speak against the motion. We have had a bit of toing and froing on this draft amendment number 8 over the last few months. Personally, I'm still unsettled about some of the content in items 1 and 4, and given that we have to vote on the package as a whole, I don't feel that I could support this in its current form. Specifically, my issues relate to item 1, which is the new medium density residential zone. This is being created primarily, by my understanding, or driven by the state government's need for additional housing in the region. So I find it incongruous that in a new medium density residential zone, we are incorporating short-term accommodation as an acceptable or code-assessable development. I would have liked to have seen that to have been removed. I don't see that there's any valid reason for enabling or facilitating tourism uses or short-term accommodation in the proposed medium density residential zone. And in item 4, which is the amendment to encourage retirement and residential care facilities on Tamborine Mountain, I have issues that the wording, whilst it is aimed at ensuring that any future development applications for retirement and residential care facilities are to be co-located within the same development, there really is no recognition of what the percentages should be. And given that we've got an ageing population, particularly on the mountain, I think we should have defined what the percentages or the ratios of aged care beds to residential facilities would be, because it's so open-ended at the moment that it means that someone can apply for a lifestyle village, basically a retirement village of 100, and providing they allocate one aged care bed, that would be enough to meet the minimum requirements. So I can't endorse this.
Thank you, councillor. Those wishing to talk to the motion? Councillor McInnes.
Thanks, Mayor. I take Councillor Hayes' points, especially the first one. I don't disagree with what she's saying, but the state, at the end of the day, has the say on this, and I don't think any of us particularly like it, but we have to live by it, and if we want it to be, that's part of the conditions that the previous government have insisted, and I haven't heard anything coming out of the new government. I think the bigger picture is, though, while I mightn't think it's a great idea myself, there are a lot of other things there in the motion that some 20, 35 different parts there, which some of them really needed, and it'll come back and bite us if we don't get off the barbed wire fence, so to speak, and we don't get on with this and get these done. It really will come back and bite us down the track. So I believe it's in our interests and the community's interests that we actually approve this today.
Thank you, councillor. Anyone wish to talk against the motion? Councillor Crowe?
I'd like to ask a question.
Yes, councillor.
With regards to option 2 and items specified, is that, and in regards to item 4 and probably item 1, but in item 4, with the terminology, and that it was originally that residential care facilities and retirement facilities are supported to service the care and accommodation needs of aged persons on Tamborine Mount Plateau, where located in the urban footprint and close proximity to services and facilities and are of a low density and small in scale. And that number 8, large-scale retirement facilities, residential care facilities are not supported in the Tambury Mountain community due to their inconsistency with the prevailing low-intensity development pattern and character of the area, and the limited infrastructure availability, such as reticulated water supply and sewerage networks, that this has now been crossed out and changed to number 6 in the Tambury Mountain community. The establishment of large-scale retirement facilities and residential care facilities is only supported in the urban footprint in close proximity to services and community infrastructure. I feel there should be more clarity around what is considered to be large-scale and what makes these facilities now suddenly consistent for the Tambury Mountain community, where low-intensity development pattern character of the area and limited infrastructure regarding reticulated water supply and sewage networks has remained unchanged, or basically unchanged, since the planning scheme's inception. So I'm just questioning that can there be some more clarity around the wording of large scale, and also that the infrastructure, limited infrastructure is now. I did ask these questions in the previous time that this was raised, and I feel it's not satisfactory that it's changed, to the satisfactory point. And so I'm wondering, the question is, if item 1 and 4 can be the items specified to be not, in option 2, to be not approved at this time, and leave them out.
Through the CEO.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the General Manager maybe.
So it's more of a procedural issue. That option was put there that council could select certain items and not others. I'll probably go back to the Mayor and CEO. We have a motion on the floor as to what the process would be.
To be honest, can you ask the question again, please, Councillor? Not in its entirety, but the bit that you're seeking, that clarity you mentioned.
Yeah. Through the chair, I'd like to ask if we could have items 1 and items 4, particularly item 4, included in items specified of the option 2 to be not included in the planning scheme amendment at this stage, due to clarity around what is considered to be large scale, and that's how the facilities are now suddenly consistent.
So I think the question is, option 2 for recommendation is that you could accept the amendments, all but numbers 1 and 4. But my issue is there's already a motion on the books.
So through Mr. Mayor, we'd need to go through the first of those motion processes and then see if there's anything that comes up. So technically at this point, you're foreshadowing an amendment should the motion put forward by Councillor Chalk be defeated. Good.
We'll take that on board.
She can propose an amendment to my motion if she so wishes to do that. I just want to probably talk to this a little bit further and say...
Just before we do, is there anyone wishing to talk against the motion?
Not the motion, I'm talking...
Oh, you want to raise it?
Kerry
Okay.
was talking about. This package is going to a state interest review. This is not going into our planning scheme. It's not the final decision to be made. There's a whole process got to go through to sense check this with the community and through the state interest. There's going to be plenty more chances for us to consider whether this is appropriate and these are appropriate, and we can bring amendments up to this at any point and make them as other amendments. So we're not voting today to put this in our planning scheme, done and dusted. We're voting just to go to a state interest review. So we could leave them out, but to what end? Whether we flag that we want further work done on this as maybe a future amendment to the scheme in itself specifically. So just wanted to flag that as we've held this process up a few times already. So maybe we just let this package go through as is. This is what I'm proposing, and then we flag that your concerns and we keep working on them into the future.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I see through, there's a number of considerations here. And yes, it has been put up before, and I also understand the concern raised that if council does not progress these amendments, then the minister may direct council to amend the planning scheme, which we don't want to be put in that position. But having said all of that, there's also recently been a state election and a change of minister. And those directions haven't come forward from that new minister. And there will be a number of policy changes in within the new government. And given the uncertainty today about these members, from the members in relation to certain elements of this package, we do want to get it right, and am flagging that possibly that we look to option 2 and review the opportunity. Is there anyone wishing to talk to the motion? And there's no proposed amendments to the motion. I'll put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? That will leave it with the chair to forgot the wording, to take the casting vote. Thank you. And I will vote against the motion.
Division, please.
Motion defeated. Division 3, 4, 5 and 6 in favour. The Mayor and Division 1 and 2 against. Division 4 is here. Division 3 is not here. 4, 5 and 6 were in favour. Not at this stage. We've still got to deal with the matter. Oh, well, I suppose, no, we don't.
We need the
Alternate motion to be put forward. Councillor Cryer, would you like to put forward an alternate motion?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hang on, I'm just going to find it. I'd like to put forward the motion of option 2, that council note the attached draft amendment number 8 to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 and proceed to a state interest review in accordance with the Planning Act 2016 and the Minister's guidelines and rules for items specified, and that would be the majority of the items except for 1, 4, what was the other one?
Acting Manager.
Apologies. Sorry, I'm just looking for the other item that I had there and now I've lost track of it. Item 10.
Just before you do, can we just hear from the acting manager?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to raise with councillors as well, just as a consequence of amendment number 1 not proceeding, amendment number 2 also relates to the Terrace Housing Code, which directly relates to amendment number 1. So just flagging that for council's consideration.
Thank you.
Speak further to that, if I may, through the chair. It actually affects the reconfiguring a lot requirements as well that are being updated in item 3 because it requires for a small lot size to accommodate the medium density zone. So removing item 1 has a few consequences in other items, specifically 2 and 3.
Thank you.
Chair,
Councillor Hay.
would it be possible for us to just move a motion that we defer this entire item until further work is done on it and bring it back to the ordinary meeting in January? I wouldn't imagine too much is happening in the state government from here till then.
Would you like to propose that as a motion, councillor?
Yeah.
We haven't got a motion on the floor at this stage.
Through Mr. Mayor, councillor, if we can follow the same process where you foreshadow if this should fail and then that becomes the motion.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I foreshadow an alternate motion. Thank you.
So you want to attempt your motion
Through Mr. Mayor, what is your alternate motion?
My alternate motion is that council note the attached draft amendment number 8 to the Scenic Rim Planning Scheme 2020 and defer the item to a future ordinary meeting, preferably that of January 2025, for a decision at that point following further work on the issues that have been raised. Thank you.
Sorry, for a decision, sorry, can you come back to me? For a decision?
Sorry. Through Mr. Mayor, perhaps if you just ask for a deferment of the item until the January meeting.
Yes, happy with that. Thank you.
January might be a bit unrealistic considering staffing and timing issues.
Through Mr. Mayor, if it can be February, that would be beneficial.
February's fine. Thank you.
All right. Have we got the motion? Yes. Thank you. Can we have a seconder to Councillor Crier's motion?
Can I just ask a question? Whose motion is this? Councillor Crier started off talking about option 2, then Councillor Hayes now proposed a deferment, which is not option 2, it's something totally different.
Foreshadowed motion.
No, she just read it out. She's deferring to February, so she's read a motion out. Who's...
Sorry, I think we're just trying to organise the different motions that we're floating about then. So as I understand it, there's a motion that you need to vote on that's with Councillor Crier at the moment, who is seeking a seconder. And there's a alternate motion being foreshadowed by Councillor Hay should Councillor Crier's motion not be successful.
Could we have a seconder to Councillor Crier's motion?
Can I just add that if you've got items specified, you've got being item 10 only in there.
That's what you said.
No, I said
So
1, 4.
1, 4 and 10?
Yeah, thank you.
And then we had the GM's flagged other items that are impacted by item 1, which I, from memory, were 2 and 3. Councillor Crier, are you happy to include those?
Yes.
3, Mr. Mayor. It should actually be, I think, worded instead of being items 1, 2 and whatever, excluding items.
Sure.
Thank you. Seconded to the motion?
I'll second it.
Councillor Cryer, would you like to talk to your motion?
No, if it is defeated, then we go with the foreshadowed motion, then so be it.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Division? Call for a division. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 4, 5 and 6, 4. Yes, yeah. All right, can we call Councillor Moriarty back into the room?
We've still got to deal with the deferral. Oh, sorry, the motion got up. I understand.
Yeah.
And just,
You have to advise Councillor Moriarty of the
yeah,
decision.
he's reading it now.
Yes.
You're happy with that, Councillor? Thank you. Move to item 11.3 and call upon Councillor Cryer.
Sorry, conflict of interest.
Thank you for a reminder. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just flagging that I have a declarable conflict of interest in item 11.3. The conflict arises as one of the nominated or recommended grant recipients, Mr Terry Day of 109 the Shelf Road, Tamborine Mountain, environmental grant application number 24/33, is the president of Shelf Community Inc. and my partner, close associate Stuart Wright, is the treasurer of that organisation. As that group is currently in communication with council re landslip issues on the Shelf Road, I believe this gives rise to a declarable conflict of interest, although neither myself, Stuart Wright, nor the Shelf Community Inc. stand to gain a benefit from the awarding of the environmental grant. I ask that unconflicted councillors decide by resolution that I be permitted to participate in the discussion and vote on this agenda item. Thank you.
Okay, could I have a motion in relation to the conflict? Councillor Cryer.
I move the motion that Councillor Hay, with a declarable conflict of interest for this item, is allowed to remain in the room and partake. Oh, you haven't got a speaker there. With a declarable conflict of interest, is allowed to remain in the room and vote on the matter at hand.
Thank you. Could I have a second to the motion? Councillor Sanders. Councillor Cryer, you wish to talk to your motion?
No, thank you.
Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried. With Councillor Hay not voting. Division. Carried unanimously outside of Councillor Hay not voting. Thank you. All right. We'll now proceed to item 11.3 and call upon Councillor Cryer to introduce that item.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce report item 11.3, 2024 to 2025 environmental grants allocation. I take the report as read. The Environmental Grants Program is an annual council initiative to work in partnership and assist landholders and groups to complete environmental projects which aim to protect, improve, enhance and restore native vegetation and wildlife habitat within the Scenic Rim, including management of restricted invasive plants and introduced invasive animal species known as pests. Grants are available at one project per applicant, up to a maximum of $10,000 for private property owners who participate in Land for Wildlife and also for schools, and $30,000 for businesses, up to $30,000 for businesses with philanthropic programs, non-government organisations, not-for-profit organisations, community and land care groups. Concurrent projects are also encouraged to apply, which is good to see. Council budgeted $180,000 to be made available for the 2024-2025 program, but with such a strong interest from many groups and individuals, the level of funding sought from the community totalled $571,734 for the 72 applications received. Ultimately, 70 were assessed, resulting in 29 successful applications for full or partial funding for this year's program. This report advises of the applications made to Council's 2024-2025 environmental grants program and outlines the recommended distribution of grant funds for the project. I now move the motion that Council approve the allocations for environmental grants in the amount of $179,942.31 for 29 projects under the Environmental Grants Program for 2024 to 2025, as outlined in the following table. ENVG 24/01 Tambourine Mountain Land Care for a project of Tambourine Mountain Land Care Weed Control 2024 for the amount of $25,000. EMVG 24/04 Justin O'Connell Lantana Control Stage 1 Northern Ridge Koala Corridor $3,000. EMVG 24/06 Elizabeth Rose Weed Control Through Gully $3,000. ENVG 24/10 Delphine Legros Delve Weed Management and Bush Regeneration $6,624. EMVG 24/13 Glen Brune Riparian and Platypus Protection 7 Mile Creek Mulgara $6,603.28. ENVG 24/20 Carolyn Smith Cat's Claw Creeper Control along Reynolds Creek $4,000. ENVG 24/22 David Hanson Namola Lot 8 Land Rehabilitation and Revegetation $3,575. ENVG 24/26 Justine Reed Restoration and Enhancement of Critical Habitats in Getaway Park Nature Refuge Post Christmas Day Cyclone 2023 $10,000. ENVG 24/30 Shaylee O'Brien Stage 1 Control of Restricted Environmental Weeds in Remnant Riparian Vegetation on O'Brien's Creek $1,080. ENVG 24/33 Terry Day Clear Track to and control of noxious weeds around Secluded Falls on Guanaba Creek $6,109.08. EMVG 24/35 Bidadaba Action Group Bidadabadida. Oh God.
That one.
Sorry to the people of Bidadadaba. Hang on, I lost it now. Creek Restoration Project, $10,000. ENVG 24/39 Thunderbird Park Minican Thunderbird Park Rainforest Restoration, $4,940. ENV G24/40 Susie Bell Habitat Protection and Improvement, $2,000. ENV G24/45 Andrea Bell and Darren Green, 344 Cossart Weed Removal and Revegetation, 2024-2025 South Boundary Creek, $6,000. ENV G24/46 Linda Cross Lantana Control and Koala Corridor Planting, $3,580. ENV G24/50 David Wilson Erosion Management and Habitat Restoration at Knapp Creek, $8,000. ENV G24/54 Muriel and Ian Shepherd Top Shelf and Bartle Grove Project, $3,939.45. ENV G24/56 Tracy Krieg Weed Control, $3,000. ENV G24/63 Marion Sawyers Cat Claw Creeper Control along Steel Creek, $3,600. We're almost there. ENV G24/66 Chris and Ina Logan Lantana Eradication between Waterhole and Whiskey Gully, $7,500. ENV G24/68 Beachmont District Landcare Scenic Rim Regional Council / Landcare Reserves Ecological Restoration and Remediation, $16,771. ENV G24/71 Logan Albert Conservation Association Restoring Koala Habitat Trees on the Logan River through Weed Control, $8,000. ENV G24/72 Ian Beale installing 5 habitat innovation nests targeting endangered greater glider central species GG and accompanying monitoring cameras in remnant GG habitat area at Gillies Ridge Nature Reserve, Gillies Ridge, $2,892.50. ENV G24/73 Micah Chataway Cat's Claw Creeper Control in Remnant Vine Scrub, $4,800. ENV G24/75 Balimba Creek Catchment Nature Refuge Moth Vine Control at Balimba Nature Refuge, $6,000. ENV G24/76 Desmond Mueller Alford's Gully Nature Refuge Invasive Weed Control Program, $4,800. ENV G24/78 Christine McLeod Riparian Restoration and Habitat Improvement, $5,268. ENV G24/81 Dale Anderson Ecological Restoration of a Billabong Surround, $6,400. ENV G24/82 Craig Humphrey Node Corridor Project Stage 2, $3,460. This is for a total recommended $1,179,942.31. And 2, Council provide relevant feedback and advice to the unsuccessful grant applicants to continue to build capability in the delivery of environmental projects. Thank you.
Happy to second.
Thank you, councillor. Call upon a seconder to the motion. Councillor Sanders. Councillor Cryer, would you like to talk to your motion?
No, again, I've said enough. Thank you.
Anyone wish to talk against the motion? I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Turn to item 11.4 and call upon Councillor Sanders to introduce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Portfolio Councillor for Tourism and Events, I have great pleasure in presenting item 11.4, the Long Sunset 2025. I understand that all councillors have read and understood the report, and as background, I've previously presented a report advising of the success of the Long Sunset to attract visitors to the region. That report tabled data and information on the visitors, the feedback and the economic benefits for the region. Council have received Queensland Music Festival's request for a confirmed 2025 sponsorship commitment by end of December 2024 to progress the venue negotiations and to commence artist negotiations in January 25. So I now move the motion that 1. Council approve an interim Category 2 event sponsorship of $100,000 for the Long Sunset 2025, pending provision of independent research outcomes and in accordance with the Regional Event Sponsorship Council policy and corporate procedure. 2. Council review the Long Sunset sponsorship commitment in March 2025 to a maximum total of $150,000 based on Council's economic return objectives. 3. Council approve the ancillary expenditure of $20,000 to fund leveraging initiatives including a destination-led media campaign to raise the profile of the Scenic Rim to increase event visitation and length of stay. And 4. Council acknowledge alternate funding sources will be pursued to offset Council's investment, including federal arts funding and corporate sponsorship.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Hay. Councillor Sanders, would you like to talk to the motion?
Yes, please. This year, Council will no longer be attracting disaster relief and other funding for this event, so Council will limit the funding and therefore the risk for this event, as QMF and state government will remain the largest investor in the event. Scenic Rim would benefit from the increased visitation to the region, and we can access and review the data to confirm.
Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Questions? I put it to the floor though. Sorry, Councillor Sanders, would you like to sum up?
No, I just did that, thank you.
I'll put it to the floor then. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And now move to item 11.5 and call upon Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.5, Waste Management and Resource Recovery Strategy, Year 3 report card, and I take the report as read. The actual report itself is contained from page 73 in the agenda, and it outlines the region's current waste generation and diversion, excuse me, which is detailed in the report card, including, excuse me, including the waste that goes to landfill. Just some points from that report. 1 in every 4 bins collected is less than 50% full, and 66% of recycling bins had no contamination, which means that the remainder did. So there's obviously a bit of educational work to be done there in the community. On page 92 of the agenda, you'll find information on general waste bin composition, which makes interesting reading, and there has been a bit of a shift from the previous year's report, which is good to see that we are getting somewhat better at determining what goes in what bin. The report's very self-explanatory, so I would like to move to the motion that that Council endorse the Waste Management and Resource Recovery Strategy Year 3 report card, and 2, Council delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to make minor grammatical and formatting changes to the Waste Management and Resource Recovery Strategy Year 3 report card if required after its adoption and prior to publishing on Council's website for public access, noting any such changes will be advised to councillors prior to publishing. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor Sanders. Councillor Hay, would you like to talk to your motion?
No, thank you, Chair. The report's self-explanatory.
Thank you. Anyone wishing to talk against? I'll put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Now turn to item 11.6 and call upon Councillor Moriarty.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce item 11.6, Council's monthly financial report for November 2024, noting that this report seeks Council endorsement of the monthly financial report for 2024. I move the motion that Council note the unaudited financial statements for the period ended 30th November 2024 for the financial year 2024-2025.
Thank you, councillor. Could I have a seconder to the motion? Councillor McInnes? We should talk to your motion, councillor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have just a couple of questions, probably for the benefit of those in the gallery and perhaps people watching online as well, listening online. Hopefully there's someone among us who is able to shed a bit of light. I just note on the executive summary on page 1 states that operating expenditure is 0.6% higher than the budget that budgeted, yet 3 out of the 4 reasons given actually show that the operating expenditure is less, and the total of those items is $2 million, whereas the total of the higher items is $348,000, which would actually suggest that operating expenditure is less than budgeted, not higher. And I know they're only examples, but I was just wondering if a council officer through the chair would be able to provide some reasoning for that.
Through Mr. Mayor, Andrew. Push the button.
Yes, so I'll be able to bring the report up on the screen by any chance.
We're just looking at the operating expenditure, and there's a couple of examples given, reasons given, and I thought it was interesting that the total was actually higher than budgeted, whereas the examples given would suggest that it should be lower, but there might be some other reasons for that I'm not aware of.
Is there a particular page of the report?
Oh, sorry, I didn't write down the pages I should have.
Oh, it's the attachment.
And if you go to here, in particular, is what it's referring to.
Through Mr. Mayor. Andrew, are you waiting for that to come up on the screen? Yeah.
I am, yes, thank you.
You got it?
That's the top bit,
Yeah, thank you.
References to the operating expenditure, 230 higher than budget expectations.
Yes, operating expenditure is 0.6 higher, I think. Oh, 0.6 higher, yeah.
0.23 million higher.
0.3 million higher. 0.6%, is that what you're saying? Is that the question? Well, it's 0.6%, but most of the other ones are.
Oh, no, it's just that the examples given below are largely due to the
after expenditure being below than budget.
yeah, so you would think that would suggest that it would be lower than expected, not higher, but it's not a gotcha moment or anything. I was just actually curious as to how the figure ended up higher, but it's not a huge amount anyway, so if you want to take it on notice, that's perfectly okay.
Yep, that might be best. Yep, I can provide a better response. Yep. Thank you.
So the other one is capital expenditure 3.6 million lower than budgeted, and it says refer to note 5. Again, just for those in the gallery and maybe people watching online, just an explanation of 3.6 million is a fairly significant sum of money. The reasons why that is lower than expected.
That might be something I've referred to the Gen Manager for the area. Yep.
Thank you for the question. As outlined on the summary page, we are still seeing some delays in what was anticipated as delivery within our fleet, which makes up almost $2 million of the $3.6 million that's currently allocated there.
Also, we are having some delays with regard to some of the wet weather we've been experiencing, or the weather we've been experiencing with actually the progression of our, not only our disaster funded projects, but also some of our other projects, namely bridge replacement at Kangoon, which was anticipated to be finished by now, however is delayed, and a number of other projects, including our reseal program.
Thank you for that. And the other one of interest is in our financial position, it says our cash and investments are $13 million, which is significantly higher than expected. $13 million is not an insignificant sum of money, so some explanation around that, if possible, please.
Yes, I'll do my best to answer that one. As mentioned, the explanations were due to the higher than anticipated operating surplus. The operating surplus is 4 million higher than anticipated. Lower capital expenditure, which is 3.6 million lower than expected, so up to about 7.7 million. Higher capital revenue is another $3 million. So all those variances have added up to contribute to that $30 million additional cash that we have at the moment.
Thank you for that. Just with regard to, I note some comments in there that this expenditure is less because of employee entitlements and because we essentially perhaps have a number of positions vacant. If someone, one of the GMs perhaps might be able to help me with this, but when we have a high number of vacancies and that money that is budgeted for wages and salaries is obviously not being spent on wages and salaries, where does that money go and what happens to that money?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that money gets reflected in whether a position is actually going to remain long-term within the establishment report. So there are some positions that we've advertised 3 or 4 times to, and I don't know if the Acting General Manager wants to speak to this as well, but we've advertised 4 times and had limited response. That money should then be referred back into the operational budget because those positions are not being filled. The other way we try to do it is by phasing the employment over the budget. So instead of waiting for the 1st of July and advertising all the jobs, phasing them out over that period of time because it's going to take that long to recruit people anyway. So at the moment we would be well over 50, 60 vacancies within the organisation, perhaps even more. It does represent the money that is saved from not having employees is often offset by the fact that you need to employ contractors to do the work. So we can advertise on a consistent basis, but if we're not getting those people applying for the jobs, and I'd love to say we're the only council in this same circumstance, but all the other councils are in a similar circumstance. So, Acting General Manager, I don't know if you want to say anything, Will?
No, that's pretty much summed it up, but we reaffirm our position that if we don't find the right candidate, we don't just put a bum on the seat. We continue to advertise until we find someone that is right for the position, and unfortunately that leaves us sometimes down a roll.
Thank you. The question wasn't so much to do with the number of vacancies, just what happens to the money that's not being spent on wages, because it's obviously a significant sum of money not being spent in that space. So
again, through Mr. Mayor, just before you, Deputy Mayor, that money suddenly gets transferred where applicable into materials and contracts. So that's where you have to bring on your contractor to undertake those works, which will mean you're limited. The scope of your works using that contractor will be limited because they are more expensive than a staff member at times. Sorry, Deb.
Thank you.
No, you took the words out of my mouth, CEO. I was hoping you'd say that before. Actually, it is in materials and service, and yeah, it's like you say, it's often dearer than having our own employees, but that's the world we live in at the present time.
And that would also come back at a quarterly review under the budget where the positions are vacant and the contractors have not been awarded. That also leads into another question, if I may, though, in relation to page 6 of 11 or page 86 of the agenda, where you have a, which may relate to what we've already been talking about, contractors figure as near doubled what was budgeted for, from about $250,000 to near $500,000.
Yeah, that's correct, and that's as a result of the employee expenses being transferred down to that line. That's correct.
Anyone wishing to? Councillor Cryer.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the materials and services and the next page, 87, the line council-wide transactions, which is under other material and services, through the chair, could I please clarify on what that had a $0 amount, and then it was a revised budget for 4,577,000. Is that? Could I just find out what that is for, please?
Yes, I'll try and answer this question. Yes. Yes, during the last term of council, while interest rates were extraordinarily low, council took the opportunity to refinance its loans and borrowed $15 million towards future unallocated projects that would build the region and enhance the economy. When the loan was taken out, $15 million was set aside in the capital program to be allocated to future projects. This $4.5 million represents the remaining unallocated portion of that original loan, and was carried forward from last year's capital program. As it was a carry forward, it wasn't in the original budget, and it was just included in the revised budget as part of the carry forward budget review in September. So it's basically the remaining unallocated portion of the $15 million loan that was taken out a few years ago. If that helps.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any further questions? Anyone wishing to talk against the motion? Councillor, would you like to sum up?
No, thank you, Mayor. I think the report's self-explanatory, and we've exhausted the questions. Thank you.
I put it to the floor. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We now turn to item 12.1, which will go into closed session. So I need a motion from the floor. Councillor McInnes. I will when we come back, when we close, just before we close the meeting.
Yes, Mayor, in accordance with Council standing orders for council meetings policy and provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulations 2012, Council closed the meeting to public to discuss confidential items as follows. Consideration of confidential investigation report, as discussions will be held about a confidential investigation. I so move, Mayor.
Seconded. Councillor Hay. Those in favour? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. And we will come back on the hour.
Or half an hour?
We will come, sorry to the public, we will come back on the half hour.
Yeah.
Thank you. Welcome back. And I propose the motion that council will resume in open session for the proposal of resolutions. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Sanders. Those in favour? Moved unanimously. I now call upon Councillor Marshall Chalk to introduce item 12.1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'll introduce report 12.1, the consideration of confidential investigation report, which was closed under S254J, 3E and F. After them discussions, I will move the following motion that 1, Council reject the findings of the conduct investigation report as the complaints were vexatious and the investigation contained underlying flaws. 2, Council reject the findings of the procurement investigation report as the complaints was vexatious and the investigation contained underlying flaws. And 3, Council reject the findings of the reprisal investigation report as the action taken, the subject of the complaint was reasonable and expected management action under the circumstances. And 4, Council will implement a leadership program that ensures all behaviour is aligned with Council's values and reinforced at all levels, with robust systems in place to achieve the highest standard in professional behaviour and workplace culture across the entire organisation.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder? Councillor McInnes. Anyone wishing, Councillor, you wish to talk to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Anyone wishing to talk against? I put the motion to the floor. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Well, it's carried unanimously. No one against. Thank you. That draws the meeting to an end. Being the final meeting for 2025, I would like to... Sorry? 24, sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself now. It's been one of those days. I would like to acknowledge, as we close out the 2024 year, I would like to thank the Council Administration, the outsourced staff, and also the CEO for their support and their contribution over the year. On behalf of Scenic Rim Regional Council and all the councillors, I would like to wish everyone in our region the very best for the season and a safe and festive season. I know it's been I think it's a record wet December for in over 10 years. And just a reminder to everyone in terms of if it's flooded, forget it. And please stay safe on the roads if you're travelling. If you're staying within our region, please enjoy that all this region has to share. As I said, thank you very much for everything that has been contributed to the betterment of our region in 2024, and I look forward to seeing everyone in 2025. Thank you, and call the meeting closed at 12:33.